welcome to our weekly webinar for emergency medical services. So my name is Josh Gregory. I'm the Vice President of Education here at Route Consultant. Now, if you've never been here before, these webinars are really here to help you learn about this new industry, ask any questions you have, and then help you find the best way to accelerate this journey if you decide this is the right industry for you. Now, if you are here live, at the end of the content today, we will have an open Q&A session. So any questions that you have about the space or about what we talk about today, you're free to ask. We'll be here to answer anything that you all have. Just my ask of you is that if you put a question in, you put it in that Q&A button at the bottom of the window. If you put it in the chat or try to raise your hand, I'm going to miss it. So if you want your question answered, make sure you put it in the Q&A button at the bottom once we get to the Q&A section at the end. Now, the way, like I mentioned, we're going to have some content today. And so before we get to the Q&A, what we wanted to talk about today is a little bit about understanding the revenue model in this industry and how you actually get paid. So if you've been to these webinars before, we have Hans Fakir again, who is our expert in this industry. He's run these businesses and helped countless other mentors get into the space for the first time. So we've got him back on again to help us with this topic. So Hans, if you want to go ahead and jump on and say hello.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? And how are you, Josh?
I'm doing well. It's good to see you again, Hans. I know you missed me last week. You had to do a whole week with Anna Lee, but I'm back.
I mean, just like, where's Josh? No. Annalie and I watching this. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
She was amazing.
good.
She was
Perfect.
amazing. So yeah, man. But definitely
Yeah,
good to have you back on.
yeah, definitely. So like I mentioned, kind of what we want to talk about this week is just how you get paid in this space. So can you kind of walk through the different types of clients and how you get them and what that revenue structure looks like for everybody?
Definitely. It'll be my pleasure. Okay, again, like Josh said, we are entering the EMS space, which is emergency medical service space. We are providing patients for non-emergency medical transportation. The main payer source that most private EMS companies will go after is Medicare. And the main patient that Medicare pays for are dialysis patients. We touched on this briefly in the past, but I definitely will go into it again so everyone can have a clear picture of how we get paid on dialysis patients. And let me say this. One of the main reasons why people or ambulance companies market to dialysis patients is just because of the consistency and the longevity. You can have a dialysis patient, 5 to 10 years, and you know that schedule for for their duration of however long they're on dialysis, whether if they get a new kidney and move on to bigger and better things, or, unfortunately they pass away. But you can have dialysis patients for a long time. So a lot of people in the EMS world, a lot of companies that I've mentored, and even the bigger companies, they target dialysis patients because of the consistency. And you know that you're going to get paid from the government insurance, which is Medicare and Medicaid. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about dialysis patients and how we get paid on that, because dialysis patient is really the foundation. And then we're going to talk about all these other providers that are the icing on the cake, as I like to say, right? Where people really make a lot of money and increase their revenue stream in the EMS world. So with dialysis patients, for those of you who don't know, dialysis is for people that have renal failure or kidney failure, and they have to get their blood filtered every 3 days. Again, that's the consistency that we're looking for, right? So the average dialysis patient is going to dialysis for a duration of 3 to 4 hours, 3 times a week, whether it's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. So the way that Medicare pays you for these patients are they will pay you to pick up the patient, which will be $167 to pick the patient up, and they will pay you $167 to drop the patient off. In the EMS world or the ambulance world, we call it our A trip. We're going to go pick Josh up, and our B trip, we're going to take Josh home. And if Josh happens to live, let's say, 10 miles away from his dialysis treatment, Medicare is also going to pay you the miles, which is $7 a mile. So let's do the math real quick on a patient. For example, Josh. We pick Josh up, A trip, that's $167. Drop him back off, that's another 167. Add that together, you're getting 334, right? So now you got $334 for the pickup and drop off. But again, Josh lives 10 miles away. So we're gonna do, I think it's $8 a mile, I'm sorry, $80 one way and $80 another way to drop them home, right? A trip and B trip. That equals to 160. So now you have made what 494 for that one particular patient for that day. But the cool thing about it is, or the thing about it is that Josh has to go to the house. I don't think that's cool, but Josh has to go to the house 3 times a week. So you're gonna take that 494 multiplied by 3, and Josh is giving you $1,482 of revenue weekly. But Josh has to go every week, 4 weeks in a month. We're going to multiply that 1482 times 4. So Josh by himself is bringing you $5,982, which is pretty good for one particular patient. So if we take that 59, I mean $595,928, my apologies. We take that and let's say that you purchased an ambulance company that has 15 dialysis patients and they all average about the same miles, right? And they all are on Medicare. So you could safely take that $5,928, multiply that by 15, and you should see $88,920 in that particular bank account on a monthly basis, right? So that's pretty good. And if you are a really booming company and you're getting paid $5,928 per patient with the miles, and let's say you have 25 patients, you're bringing home monthly roughly $148,000 a month. That's just on dialysis. So that's the key thing that I want everybody to pay attention to. Now, we talked about the main payer source or the main customer that we market to. Now we're going to talk about all the other customers that you can build your dialysis schedule around. Because you have the consistency with your dialysis schedule, right? You have Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then you have the trucks taking them Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Or we call it MWF and TTS, right? Well, let's remember one thing that I said. Dialysis patients are usually on a dialysis machine from 3 to 4 hours. So you either have time to pick up other dialysis patients or do these services. You can go pick up a patient from a nursing home, assisted living facility, urgent care, wound care, ER discharge, or a sporting event, right? So you have time to do what I call the icing on the cake transport, right? Because dialysis is going to pay the bills and it'll put you in a comfortable space. But the other providers that I just listed are different ways for you to gain more access to more capital. So let's say dialysis is through insurance, and out of the things that I listed, you got dialysis you're getting paid through Medicare, Medicaid, or whatever insurance the patient has. Urgent care will be an insurance payer. Wound care, you're getting paid through insurance. You also have hospice. I didn't really say hospice, but you can pick up patients from hospice. You have, um, and that's insurance paid, and you also have we said nursing facilities, assisted living. I think those are all the companies that will pay you through insurance, right? Nursing facilities will also pay you directly, though. So if you have a contract with a nursing facility, they will go by the Medicare rates. And most nursing facilities, they'll do a net 30. We invoice them 25 days into the billing cycle, and we usually get paid on the 30th day. And nursing facilities are allocated a certain amount of funds from Medicare for transportation. So you should never have a problem getting paid from nursing facilities. And another great thing that nursing facilities will do is if you take their your ambulance patients, maybe add a wheelchair to your fleet, and you can start taking their wheelchair patients to doctor's appointments and a less critical transportation. So that's another way for you to generate more revenue starting an ambulance business. All right, that is a great thing. One other thing that I want to touch on is this. I didn't say this before, but I did write it down. I really want to talk about this. One of the biggest things that I realized that a lot of people get paid on is during hurricane season or any natural disaster, right? AMR is one of the biggest ambulance companies in the United States. They're the head of the CDC or FEMA's disaster relief program. So let's use you as again, Josh. If you had an ambulance company right here in Nashville and there was a disaster in Georgia, they don't let you respond to your own state, but then you can respond to anywhere outside of your state. AMR will pay you up to $200 an hour per ambulance to go to that natural disaster. You and several other ambulances. So they'll have their fire department and hospital ambulances, but they service or they contract to several private ambulance companies. And the cool thing about this is you start getting paid or your employees get paid as soon as they are dispatched and they start heading towards the event. So if you're going to Miami and let's say Miami's a 12-hour drive, I don't know how long that is for Nashville, your company's getting paid, I think, between $200 and $250 an hour to go to a natural disaster. Now, I've seen companies make 100K a month per truck because they're getting paid while they sleep and during the day. That
Yeah.
was one thing that I left out and I signed up for it. You do get a pager or you do get paged 24 hours before it's time for you to actually get dispatched, but they will let you know. So, one of the greatest things about this AMR program, disaster relief, is if you have a fleet of 12 trucks, you can allocate 2 trucks on their website and you can tell them, hey, I have 2 trucks and 4 employees that are ready to go whenever. And they will call you 24 hours and say, do you still have those 2 trucks and 4 employees ready? You say yes, and then you start getting paid as soon as you're dispatched. That is huge because I've seen people make, like I said, $100,000 per truck just standing by at a hurricane disaster site, right? And basically helping people with the minimum band-aids, blood pressure, maybe a sling, just simple things like that. A lot of wound care, wound dressing. Your your employees are never called to do something so intense, or stressful. A lot of times they're getting paid even when they're in a hotel sleeping. So that's a great revenue uh, form of revenue that a lot of people do not know about. But when you do know about it and you do get called, it's going to reward you huge profits.
Yeah. And that's,
All
I
right.
mean, that's huge. I mean, I think the biggest thing that a lot of people don't know until they're in the space is just how many opportunities there are. And a lot of people, even the ones who are in the space, don't like, you don't find out about this if you don't know where to look or where to ask. Like, they're not just going to call you directly. A lot of times you have to basically sign yourself up for it or know that it's the thing that you can participate in. And it's a lot of extra revenue and potential. And, at the same time, like you can always feel good about the fact that you are helping people with needs that they have, or you're helping people in a natural disaster. So it's a real need that you're meeting. And it's, unfortunately, those are pretty common across the country, depending on how far you're willing to travel. So there's a lot of opportunity there for your business while still helping people. So I think there's the two sides of it. One, that you're getting paid well, and two, that this continues to be an industry where there's a lot of, you know, personal and even societal satisfaction from the things that you're getting to do to help people in their time of need. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think that's I really like, and I think that what a lot of people may not think about when they're thinking about the space is how consistent you can have your base revenue be if you have the right patients, just like you're talking about around dialysis. Because once you have that base schedule, those patients that are online, and you know exactly what your very consistent revenue can be, then you know where your gaps of time are, where you have extra drivers, where you have extra trucks, and you can find ways to fill it and have lots of additional revenue and profit. So I think that's the things that, it's going to be tough if you're trying to do it for the first time. And that's where
Mhm.
Hans and his experience and our team can help you as you're getting into the space, not just help you find the right one, but also help you understand all the opportunities in your area to continue to expand beyond kind of the base level.
Yeah.
So,
And you said it. I might have to start you an ambulance company because you said that perfectly. Like, listen, that was perfect.
well, I learned
Yeah.
from the best,
So sorry to
Hans.
interrupt you. I just,
Yeah. So one thing before we open it up to Q&A, just can you kind of talk through what, you talk through the different ways that you get paid, but I know a lot of people have never really had to deal with medical billing or having a company that does that. So did you do that all yourself from the beginning, or what's the right way to build that kind of staff internally or partner with someone as you're trying to figure out the billing side of this equation?
yeah, definitely. Great question. And that was trial and error because when I started, there were no mentors telling me, hey, do this, do that. So
Yeah.
what I did was I always want to eliminate as much guessing as possible, right? And find someone who's done it and just duplicate what they've done or try to do better. So I would urge anyone starting an ambulance company or just buying an ambulance company to partner up with a very reputable billing company. that can make sure that if you send a bill out to, we'll call them bills for now, but they're like patient care reports to an actual insurance provider, and it gets rejected. Maybe uh, one of your employees didn't put the right miles on there or the right patient. Knowing that you have a billing company that can fix those corrections, submit it again to not delay payment is key. Our billing company is the heart of it. It's part of like one of the major parts of your company's success, right? So I think that starting a company or even buying a company, making sure that they have a right billing company or billing person in place is very key. Now, what I did was I started with the billing company, and then when I understood the complexity of it, I understood the route that from the time that the patient gets picked up, what happens to that actual patient care report to the time it gets to the Medicare or Humana office. Once I understood that, I hired someone who had experience in billing and coding and basically paid for them to go to the EMT side, the ambulance side of it. So a lot of people that are in billing and coding and know about insurances, they've already got their credentials. You're just adding the coding for ambulance billing. And now you have someone in-house. And so now you've increased your revenue because you're not paying a billing company a percentage. You can pay somebody by the hour and even cross-train them on becoming an EMT. So that way on their downtime, you can save on payroll by putting that person on a truck. Because the billing for most ambulance companies, it doesn't take more than 2 to 3 hours a day, depending on your growth. But when we were at our peak at 22 patients, bringing in about 118,000 a month, our billing agent told us she only works on our file 1 hour a day.
Yeah.
So again, you want to make sure that you stay mindful of this because if you're paying somebody 7% of 100,000 for an hour a day's worth of work, you want to find a way to consolidate that or even get rid of that and hire somebody and pay them 18, 19, $20 an hour,
Yeah.
and it starts to add up. We were writing checks for $8,000 a month just on our billing,
Yeah. And
but again, sorry about that. I would never start it that way. I would start with the company that knows the processes of Medicare, Medicaid, and all the insurance companies. They know about the prior authorizations. They know about all the documents that you need. And then when you get a feel for it, maybe a year and a half in, I would venture into hiring someone in-house.
yeah, that's exactly what I was going to come back to is that, it's worth it in the beginning because the mistakes or the fact that you wouldn't get paid at all if you didn't know how to do it and you're just scrambling is going to make it where your business won't work. So it is definitely worth it to have the right partners at the beginning. But yeah, you're right. It's something where as much as you can learn of this space yourself, where you can find either maybe it's something that you can take on yourself as a role, or you can hire the right person to come in and handle it. You're going to always save money there, but you got to make sure you're doing it right. Otherwise, it is never going to be worth the cost. And it's always deciding, what's more valuable, the money you spend on the partnership or the time that you would have to invest to make it work, and weighing those for what matters the most for you as an entrepreneur. Maybe you're trying to pull out, scale back your time involvement, so you're willing to pay a little bit more to a vendor or bring someone on internally. You can always make those decisions, but what's important is that you make informed decisions on what your options
Yeah,
are and what the right thing is for you.
I agree. Let's make money so we can save money, right?
Right.
But if you start into this business and you're trying to save money and cut corners, you might end up losing money.
Yeah.
I'd rather go with someone, make the money, and then I have room for error. Maybe one or two patients we don't get paid on because we're learning this now, but we know enough. But at the beginning, I would never take a chance trying to figure this out as I go. And if you're not a billing person yourself and you own an ambulance company, you're at the mercy of whoever you hire. So why not just hire a company that knows what they're doing? And they don't get paid. The flip side of it is to the percentage part, they don't get paid unless you get paid. So that's key because they're going to make sure that all the PCRs that you send out, you're going to get, you're going to get paid on those. So
Yeah.
again, you want to make sure of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because your first 6 months to a year in any industry is going to be a learning curve. Like you can just expect that you want as many bumpers in place to keep you on track as you can so that you don't go off the rails in your first year when you're still trying to to learn everything. You just want to, whatever you can do to make sure that you keep getting paid and keep trying to learn the operations is important. So
Yes.
lots of those vendors, and we'll talk about a few other areas over the course of these webinars, but I think that's a really important one for everybody to hear when you're thinking about the right partnerships early, is definitely on the billing side.
Yeah.
I think that's all that we
We
wanted
have,
to say there. Or did you have anything
okay.
else there?
I was going to say, we do have some other ways that people can create consistent revenue. Now, we did talk about the main one is dialysis, but there are a lot of ambulance companies that have contracts with hospitals, and they are parked at a hospital, just removing all the discharges, keeping the hospital ER rooms clear, and they get paid up to $167 to $223 for every discharge. So some hospitals are pay to play, so the more they get people in, of course, the more they get paid. So their job is to clear those ER rooms, and they will pay ambulance companies a substantial amount of money to make sure that once somebody's discharged, there's an ambulance sitting out there to take them home or to the facility that they have to go to, or
Yeah.
transfer them to another hospital. So that's another consistent. It's not as consistent as dialysis, but it can be consistent for a lot of companies. I've seen a lot of companies do very well, and that's all they do is discharges,
Okay.
right?
And
I have one mentee that has a company in Pennsylvania, and all she does is sporting events. She has contracts with the city of Philadelphia, and she's contracted to do all their sporting events, concerts, or park events. So that's mainly what she does. Like, see, that's all she does. Again, the consistency's not as much, but for her it works, and she's doing very well with it.
so for those hotel stadium type contracts, what's generally the process that you even find out about those, much less get them?
I always go to the county commissioner's office.
Yeah.
They will know about all events coming to them that might need a permit. But also in certain county with certain offices, you can actually put your name on the vendor's list. So it's really about marketing and networking to everybody who makes that decision about parks, because they'll come to you and say, if you came to me, prime example, and you said, hey, I'm doing a huge route consultant event at a particular park in Nashville. And then the agent says, hey, listen, if you're doing over $5,000, you're going to need two police officers there in the EMS. And then they'll refer you to, hey, we have a list of EMS providers here. Now you can choose. Or maybe they won't. A lot of people don't even go this route. So, you might be on a very short list, and your schedule is constantly booked for events. There's so many events happening that we don't pay attention to that all require EMS personnel. So it's amazing. My company was hired for most of Marvel's Black Panther movie in Atlanta, Georgia. And we got paid $240 just to sit standby to watch the stunt team.
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah.
pretty cool.
That is definitely cool. Yeah. And I think it points to the fact that just you kind of have to be plugged into your community here to find these additional opportunities. It doesn't mean that, it's a ton of additional effort. It's more about finding the people and the companies or organizations like hospitals that are going to need an EMS at some point, and just finding the time to connect with them, potentially get on a list. That's all. That's your main goal, is get on a few of these lists, find the right people to talk to start that. And then, that might not be something that you're aggressively pursuing all the time, but then you're getting calls and that fills out your schedule. And as long as you've got that consistent base, like what we've talked about, all of that's gravy on top. So any effort that you've done to build those relationships are just potential opportunities that you may not have to work for hard again after getting on that initial list. And so I think there's
Exactly.
lots of opportunities there to think through, and it just kind of comes to being a little bit thoughtful and creative about your area and the things that you can serve. And even outside your area, if you can get on those lists for helping in disaster relief in whatever state you're willing to drive to.
Yes, definitely. You hit it on the head. That was perfect.
Perfect. Well, I think
Yeah.
that's all that we wanted to talk about today. So if anyone has any questions in the Q&A, you can go ahead and type those in while I kind of do my little closeout. So if anyone has any questions, you've probably got 30 seconds to type them in before I end it. So just for everybody who may be on here for the first time, and maybe this is your first webinar, or maybe you're watching on YouTube and this is your first one, we've done a few of these now. So you can go back on our YouTube page and we have all of those uploaded. We also have a kind of a 101 course that's about to come out on the space that is just a few different topics to help you understand quickly what it is you're signing up for. And then we have a few other pieces of content that'll be coming out soon as well for you to kind of take those next steps into the space and learn more, in addition to these webinars that are going to continue to be here every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Central. There's also, like I mentioned it before, and I kind of touched on here, if you're looking at either starting your own EMS company or trying to acquire one of these, there's ways that you can partner with us and with Hans to help evaluate those opportunities, or as you've got into them, have, a mentor to walk you through the process of starting it up and of operating successfully once you've taken over. So if any of that is of interest to you, reach out to our team. info@routeconsultant.com is the easiest way to get a hold of us, and we can answer all of your questions from there. Whatever those next steps look like for you, if it's asking questions, or if you've already bought one and you're struggling, or if you're trying to get a good valuation on one you're looking at, any of those types of things, we can help you. So just reach out to our team. Other than that, I'm not seeing any questions. So Hans, I really appreciate you being out here every single time. It's always a pleasure. And for everyone who joined us today, great having you here live, and we look forward to seeing both all of you and Hans on our next webinar next week on Tuesday. Thanks, everybody, and we will see you then.